listen, I think I don't do the whole, oh my God, in 5 years, here's what is going to happen. Do you understand that we're just 2 years past the Pac-12 melting down? We're going into year 2 of an expanded Big 12, an expanded Big 10. Do you know how different college football will be in 5 years? I keep talking about it, and people in the comment sections don't seem to quite grasp the gravity of the Department of Education going away. Do you know how much impact that is going to have on sports? If the Department of Education goes away, and you're talking about, number one, Title IX eliminated. You're talking about things like science-based education programs, which is a major initiative of the current administration, being eliminated. The federal government will not fund any education program based on science. That's being eliminated. So all the grant money, all of the scholarship money into those departments, eliminated now. So you have a completely different structure of how the government funds education and the basis for that. So you have a lot of institutions that are going to lose money. They're going to lose money because what's going to happen to their enrollment? Their enrollment's going down. So what happens when you lose enrollment? Your revenue goes down because you're getting far, far less scholarships and tuition.
Cashless.
So what are you going to do? You're going to cut sports. You're going to cut secondary sports. No Title IX. My feeling is some of the tertiary, the extra, the non-essential sports programs will be cut.
Mm-hmm.
Travel will be cut. And so you have all of that happening. I just think the landscape of college sports in 5 years is going to be completely different.
Yeah, and I just think that people want to speculate, which is fine. That's fine. But you know, all these people out on YouTube, you know, clickbaiting that you know, Louisville and Pitt are going to the Big 12.
Are in fact in. It's a bombshell.
Yeah,
it's shocking.
Just some ridiculous report, and you know, Louisville and Pitt are. And by the way, I don't care who you are. It's not Louisville. Okay, can we get this straight?
It's
real
not
quick?
Louisville,
It's
Louisville.
not Louisville, your momsville. It's Louisville. Okay, Louisville. It's not that hard. Okay, so no, Louisville and Pitt. You know, in 5 years, if you want to speculate about teams changing conferences, you can do that. But to sit here and, you know, report it as fact is ridiculous.
It is. And here is the genesis of it. It is Pat Forty, a guy that is universally respected. This is what people, he is talking about what could happen. The jackwagons on the internet are talking about how Pat Forty is reporting Louisville and Pitt are going to the Big 12.
I think, honestly, you know, you're going to have schools, I would imagine, that are, you know, on the shorter end of this stick. They're going to be looking at their options and saying, you know what? I'm Louisville. I'm Pittsburgh. How's Big 12 doing? Do we need to possibly look at going someplace else where we're going to get a better revenue shake? You know, I wouldn't say it's out of the question for schools that aren't just, you know, steeped in loyalty to the ACC and maybe feel like they have been handed a bad deal here. So, I don't say they're going to get up and leave now, but you watch in 5 years and see what the possible exit plans.
He didn't report anything there.
He's just speculating.
They were on one of the best college football podcasts in the country. You know, at Yahoo Sports.
Yeah.
Who lost Dan Wetzel yesterday. He went to ESPN. They're having a conversation about the ramifications, what could happen. And you've got all these idiots, Big 12's expanding. Here's what we know. Here are the facts about Big 12 expansion with the ACC. Last summer, the Big 12, through back channels, had open conversations with Duke, Carolina. I can tell you both the Virginia schools, Louisville, Miami. I have been told repeatedly the Big 12 has no interest. And I shouldn't say no interest. Pitt is not at the top of the Big 12's list. We've talked about this on the show. There's very little value in Pitt. There's natural synergy between West Virginia and Pitt. So people are making that assumption. I am told by sources at the Big 12, there's not a lot of excitement about adding Pitt to the Big 12. They made very serious intentions known with Duke. The Virginia schools. I think if they could add the Virginia schools, Louisville, I think NC State's a great fit, and I think Miami's a great fit. Everybody else is up for question and conjecture, because the Big 12, if they were to expand and go past that very big number of 20, if they were to do that, you're putting yourself in a different universe, and the costs go up significantly once you get into the 20, 22, 24 team leagues, because you just have to add so much more infrastructure. You have to add so much more conference staff just to facilitate sporting events. It's significantly more expensive to make that jump. The time, the planning, just the infrastructure of writing a schedule for 20 to 24 teams in all of your sports. It is almost impossible. It is one of the most difficult things to do. So there is not some big move or surge or desire to make that move. What Pat Forty said is what we reported last summer. If the ACC were to come apart like a SpaceX rocket ship over the Caribbean, I said a SpaceX.
First of all, it's the Caribbean. Thank you.
If the pirates in the Caribbean were eating caramel, if the pirates of the Caribbean, anyway, my point is, if it came apart like a failed SpaceX launch, I could see very clearly. The Big 12 adding schools from the ACC. I could see the SEC and the Big 10 doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening. There is no reporting that that's happening. Nobody is saying, hey, what is everybody saying? It's possible.
I would imagine.
What if? That's what's being talked about. There is currently, and I've asked the highest of high executives in the Big 12, hey, is there a movement afoot to add teams? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
The answer is not no. It's an emphatic absolutely not.
And I also think if we, step out of the college football world for a second and understand that the time of year that we're in. So right now, obviously, it's not football season, and obviously people still have to do shows and need things to talk about.
Yes.
And so my question to you guys is how burned out are you on clickbait? Because obviously clickbaiting is part of the business on YouTube, but I do think that there is a line with it. I do think that as with anything, there is a certain level that you can clickbait to without pissing people off. And I think that, all over YouTube last night, what did I see? Everybody and their mom saying that, Louisville and Pitt are going to the Big 12 and clickbaiting off of that. And I don't know, like it's one of those things where it's like any little comment now, it seems like, and everybody just runs with it like it's fact. And that's what is so surprising to me about college football right now is I feel like people really are rooting for like the ACC to melt down. I think people are rooting for Florida State and Clemson to leave that conference, and people are rooting for schools like Louisville and Pitt to be openly talking about that they're unhappy in the ACC with the new model, and the settlement is not good enough for these schools who maybe are not going to win the league regularly. And like people want that type of drama to happen just so they have something to talk about. And I'm sitting here saying, if you're not careful, you're going to melt down college football, because at some point, you have to have stability. You have to have reliability in the sport. And you said this yesterday, and I agree with it. We finally have some semblance of reliability for these schools in the Power Four conferences. And what do we have today? Here we are once again talking about schools leaving the ACC to go to the Big 12, and somehow, and it's not every show doing it, but some shows are trying to paint the Big 12 into a more negative light, saying that they're trying to steal teams, just the same way that people want to say that the SEC is trying to poach teams from the Big 12, which is a ridiculous take when you start to consider the Super League happenings.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you guys get burnt out on that the same way I personally do, because I think there is a definite way to clickbait without it being a thing where you're just making stuff up.
Let's behind the curtain a little bit. Clickbaiting's not bad. The whole point of YouTube and Twitter, and for us, Spotify and Facebook and all the places we broadcast, we write titles and we create what's called a thumbnail, a picture for the show that has to be good enough for you to click on it and watch the show. Then our job is to be sex machines and have you stay here. That's our job. But it's outrageous to me that you have these people creating these shows where they're just lying to you in their thumbnails and in their titles.
Straight up.
And it must be working for them. It must be working for them. And I'll say the same thing I've always said. I don't watch other shows. I don't. I occasionally catch 365 in the afternoon. I don't watch, Jim Rome's flipping time slots has taken him out of my ecosystem now. It's just not on my radar to watch Jim Rome in the afternoon. It's not. I'm sure at some point it will become that.
Right.
And I'll get back to watching Jim in the afternoon. But I just don't I don't watch other shows. The hysterical part is how many DMs I get with, hey, did you hear about what this guy said? And hey, this guy's entire show is about you. I love that. But I'm telling you, this thing about the Big 12 is not trying to expand. The Big 12, from what our sources have told us, the Big 12 is not talking to anybody in the ACC at this moment. What this settlement in the ACC did, and I hope people understand this, it brought calm. The water is quite glassy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nice and smooth, no wake. And I think it's going to be that way for probably 6 months. And I think as we get deeper into summer, I would assume that there will be more rumor mongering.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume. I think what is next, the story that we had an exclusive on, and I'd like to thank everybody for running with that story and not giving us a morsel of credit, where you have capital firms, which is an exclusive on the Monty Show, capital firms meeting with the major college sports TV partners. All of them have met with the big capital firms that are trying to essentially fund and power a new football entity. I was told point blank the other day to stop calling it a super league. A super league is not it. I don't know why that become a taboo term.
What are we supposed to call it then?
TV executives hate the term super league.
Why?
I don't know why. The jargon that they are using is a new college football entity.
Okay.
Right?
Can I just take 1 second and say, okay, if it makes you feel better to call it a new entity, neat, dude. I'm gonna call it a super league, and if that pisses you off, fine.
Yeah.
You are talking about taking. So let me get this right. You're talking about right now private equity firms with billions of dollars talking to the TV partners in college football to get on the same page about opening up current TV contracts and opening up those situations so that you can form this new entity with all the Power Four schools, essentially. Obviously, there are going to be some that are not involved, don't want to pay, but most of the Power Four schools. Like you're forming the logical term would be a super league because you're forming a new thing. Like
I think what is and you if you watch and And I would tell you, hey, watch at your own risk. The BS about how the ACC had their grant of rights abolished, they didn't. Do you really think the ACC, and if you can be objective, I would encourage you to be objective. Do you believe the ACC made this deal to allow teams basically to leave for the 2030 season?
Because that's the sentiment on YouTube. Everyone's saying, hey, they did this settlement. Now everyone's going to bounce in 2030, and that's some massive win for Florida State.
Which I think Florida State absolutely got what they needed, not what they wanted. But again, I will tell you, and now it's amazing to me, people are sending me video links of the idiots who do these little shows talking about how, the Florida State would have been in financial ruin if they'd have left the ACC. Well, where do you think they got that? They got it here. It would have been a financial disaster.
Yes.
As I have told you for weeks and months, for Florida State and Clemson to leave the ACC. They were never trying to get out of that league.
Because remember what everyone said in the beginning. Oh, well, they're trying to leave the ACC because they're going to get to the Big Ten, and then that evolved to they're going to get to the SEC, right? And they're going to make all this money.
And
that evolved to, hey, they're not getting into those leagues, and there's nowhere to go. So now we need to
and
sue.
Florida State's going to the Big 12.
Yeah, and
remember
and
that
there was the Big 12. Yeah, there was the Big 12. So my point is just that everyone right now, the narrative being pushed by not us. We're definitely not pushing the narrative that everyone's leaving the ACC in 2030. But everyone wants to say, oh, it's going to be Armageddon in 2030, and the ACC is going to burn down and it's over. Like, okay, cool. If you want to live in that drama world, that's fine. I'm not saying that schools aren't going to move. We know that realignment is always top of mind
constant
for schools. We know that, whether it's the Pac-12 in Memphis, whether it's Louisville and Pitt, like whoever you want to look at, bro, it's always on top of mind. But you have to understand how the process works. And I'm telling you, this new entity that's being formed is going to totally change how people are looking at realignment in whether they even need to talk about going to the Big 12 or wherever, because this situation is probably going to happen.
And the truth is, here's the truth about where things stand. If I am a bottom feeder in the ACC, I'm not happy today. But you agreed to this settlement because you picked the worst team in the ACC. Where are they going to go?
Yeah, they have no choice.
You're going with it. I think for Florida State and Clemson, it makes them exponentially more money than they were going to make. It is, by any definition, a financial win. They're not leaving the ACC today. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not trying to leave the ACC. They are, in my opinion, why did the ACC do this? Because college football is going to look remarkably different in 2030, and they know it. And they know it. That's the only reason you're doing that. If you are a P4 program, you're going to have a massive decision to make. And again, it's all about money. This Department of Education thing is huge. And there's some people that believe the Trump administration is trying to influence the way the House NIL settlement's going. And if that's the case, I feel very passionately that we don't want the truth. We want to live in an altered reality. We don't do that. Here's the truth. They're not leaving the ACC in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
I think you live in college football right now, live in 2-year windows. I think you look at this Mountain West, the jackwagon radio wizard of the Northwest apparently went on and said that the Mountain West has been crippled and they're not able to operate, and they are on, I think Scott sent me a DM on TikTok yesterday, this guy Scott, where he said that the great radio idiot or wizard, whatever you want to call him, of the Northwest said that the Mountain West is on life support because the Pac-12 has crippled the Mountain West. That is apparently what is I don't know what world you're living in.
Is credibility just not a thing anymore?
It's not a thing anymore.
Can we just, like, if Monday we rolled up and said, yeah, the SEC is going to take all the major brands in the Big 12 and the Big 12 is dying and on life support.
It's not a thing
anymore. Can we just say whatever the hell we want to say?
You can.
Like I got to be honest, like people, with all due respect to you guys, we have a lot of great daily listeners and commenters who participate in this show, and you guys are pretty well plugged in because you do listen. But the people who just roll up randomly and say all this dumb stuff, you can't just take everybody at their word. You got to like think about this and say, okay, well, hold on a second. The settlement just happened in the ACC, and Louisville and Pitt are two schools that typically are pretty successful in basketball. Louisville has, had a storied history, obviously. Pitt, is typically a tournament team. On the football field, it's hit or miss. Some years Louisville is going to push for 10 wins like they did, last year, I think it was. And then, other years they're going to be a 4-win team. And Pitt just the same. So if they're inconsistent, why would they leave a guaranteed payday? Why? They wouldn't.
Yeah, I think, yes, Jimmy Otson, this is exactly right. Florida State and Clemson wouldn't have gotten anything without suing.
Yeah.
And again, like Florida State fan says it wasn't tens of millions of dollars. Yes, it was. They put tens of millions of dollars into legal fees to get what they got. So, and I know nobody cares about net. Oh, we won huge. What's the net effect of that?
Yeah, you guys just want to say like proverbial you just wants to say, oh, well, we're going to make all this money and we're going to get 60 million a year and, everything's going to be amazing. Yeah, but cool. If you're getting 60 million a year, which again is not guaranteed. I'm just going to keep pointing that out. That's correct. A possibility, not a guarantee.
You have to earn it.
You have to earn it still. But if you go out and get 60 million a year and your net is, 40, I mean, that's still fine. That's still really solid. That's still good and an improvement. But people just want to die on that hill.
You're never getting that money back.
Yeah.
And again, this is what I'm telling you about the Mountain West. And again, the great radio wizard of the Northwest stealing our story, apparently verbatim. They haven't even gone to mediation yet. I told you the other day, they haven't selected a mediator. They haven't set a date for mediation. And I think there's a court date that's coming up the last week of the month, I'm pretty sure, in the Mountain West and the Pac-12. I'm pretty certain that will get either extended or pushed off, and they will choose a date for mediation. It makes no sense to go to court. It made no sense in the ACC. It made no sense in the Pac-12, and it makes no sense for the Pac-12 and the Mountain West.
Yeah.
So let's put a bow around it, and then we'll get your comments on it, because I'm really curious what your belief system in the ACC and the Big 12 is. Here's what I am telling you. Pat Forty did not state that Louisville, NC State, and Miami are joining the Big 12. He never said that, and I'm going to play the bite again right here. He never said that.
I think, honestly, you're going to have schools, I would imagine, that are, on the shorter end of this stick. They're going to be looking at their options and saying, you know what? I'm Louisville. I'm Pittsburgh. How's Big 12 doing? Do we need to possibly look at going someplace else where we're going to get a better revenue shake? I wouldn't say it's out of the question for schools that aren't just, steeped in loyalty to the ACC and maybe feel like they have been handed a bad deal here. So, I don't say they're going to get up and leave now, but you watch in 5 years and see what the possible exit plans.
I'm not saying they're leaving right now, but you watch in 5 years. He never reported it as fact. I can tell you, having spoken to people around college football directly involved in these conversations, Big 12 expansion is not real right now. They're not trying to expand. I think the Big 12 is doing everything that they can do to finish a capital investment deal. And then they are going to do everything they can do to raise the bar in the Big 12 conference. These Texas Tech facilities, you guys, have you seen? Did you guys see the facilities that Texas Tech rolled out? I mean, it is unbelievable how good of a renovation they did in Lubbock. I can't even believe it. It is these are some of the nicest facilities in the country.
Yeah, dude.
Not in the Big 12, not in Texas, in the entire college football landscape. What Texas Tech has built in Lubbock is nothing short of sensational. It is just, it's wow factor.
It's phenomenal.
And what is shocking about this, why are you just doing it now? That's the thing that really stands out to you. Like this picture right here of hot tubs, this is the norm at every major program. And this is what in the Big 12, ultimately, this is the bar that needs to be raised. If you look at facilities across the Big 12, like I'll look at Boone Pickens Stadium. That's not the bar anymore in the Big 12, right? You look at how the job that Texas Tech did, you look at the job that Utah did, BYU's facilities, like you're bringing in new blood and raising the bar. And now, obviously, what they did at Jones AT&T, and this is not, they didn't just say, okay, well, 2 weeks ago, they said, well, we better improve our hot tubs. This is a years-long process. But this is what has to happen across the Big 12. You have to continue to raise the bar so that you have state-of-the-art everything. And we joke with like Oak State James about IPS and indoor practice. You look at what Utah's got. Utah's got a state-of-the-art facility. Their training and body work areas are their student athlete facilities. The facility in Provo at BYU is I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
it's an NFL facility. The facility at Utah is an NFL facility. Now you look at the situation at Texas Tech. I mean, you are watching quite literally the haves and the have-nots. Do you understand the momentum that Texas Tech has?
Yeah, they're in a great place, man.
Do you guys understand the sheer upgrade in talent on that roster that is now going to reap the benefits of the millions of dollars they spent on this renovation? Texas Tech is doing exactly what you should be doing. So what do we have now? We have BYU absolutely exploding in basketball and football.
Yeah.
You've got Texas Tech transforming their roster and their facilities. What are you going to do, Oak State? What are you going to do, TCU? What are you going to do, Baylor?
Better have an answer.
What are you going to do, West Virginia? What are you going to do, Houston? What are you going to do, UCF? This is now the reality. And if we take anything out of the settlement in the ACC, anything out of the recent years of realignment, it's an arms race. It is absolutely who's got the biggest wad in their pocket and how are you going to spend it?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and again, I know people rip me for being a Notre Dame fan. I have the facilities at Notre Dame are state of the art. The facilities at Michigan, Ohio State, the new facilities that Michigan rolled out with that lock. Dude.
I mean, I just think that the formula to winning college football right now is NIL money. You know, just the size of the pot of money you have to work with. You know, facilities. Your recent, I would say, last 2 to 3 seasons worth of success. Are you a school that is in the college football playoff regularly? Are you a school like Texas Tech that probably has college football playoff aspirations, but just hasn't been able to get it done yet, but are definitely moving in the right direction? Or are you a school that's really struggling and you made this investment? And I think That's the thing.
right.
That's the thing that, when you talk about winning and trying to move forward, you have to understand the formula. And if you're not, thank you.
Did your balls just drop?
You
you're
know.
watching
That's
it.
right, T.
Look at the
You're
hair
watching
growing on
history.
his chin.
You're watching history, dude.
Are you kidding me?
You're watching
Are you
history, dude.
Wow.
It's just totally incredible. Shocking growth moment on the Monty Show. Just incredible. Amazing.
All right, let's get into the comment section on the Monty Show presented by the Advocates. Don't forget, a big day Monday. The Advocates are having a blood drive. If you are not in Utah and you cannot join us at the Advocates office in Murray, Utah on Monday from 10 to 2 for their blood drive, please consider making a blood donation. Please give blood. Every 3 seconds in this country, somebody has to have a blood transfusion. Every 3 seconds. That's why the Advocates are so amazing. Are they great injury attorneys? Yes. Do you get clear risk-free advice? Yes. Look at all the good they do in your community. Look at all the good they do. It is remarkable. If you're in a wreck, if you get hurt at work today, get to theadvocates.com where you can chat with an injury attorney 24/7, 365, and it won't cost you a dime. All right, Jay Chapman, UNC thanks Clemson and FSU for paying all the legal bills for them, essentially. That's right. It was supposed to cost $500+ million to leave the ACC and still not have the media rights. A Florida State bro argued with me about that the other day. Well, $500 million would have got their media rights. No, it wouldn't have. That is, and excuse me for being redundant, I think I said this the other day, the win for Florida State is you get your media rights.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that Florida State improved their position.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that's just not in dispute. But I think that people saying that they got what they wanted, I would disagree with that just a little bit. I do think they got a portion of what they were trying to get, right? You were trying to lower the exit fee and make it so you kept your media rights when you left the conference. Those two items were super crucial to what you were trying to do.
You were trying to break up the ACC.
But, so that's what I was getting to. Your original goal, though, was you were trying to blow up the ACC.
Yes.
You were trying to leave the conference. Because remember, and again, this was my point on Monday. The whole goal of Florida State, and then Clemson got on the bandwagon, was, hey, we're going to get 10 members in the ACC to agree to blow up the grant of rights unless you do this. That was the hostage negotiation take out of Florida State, right? That was the original plan, right? That was the original strategy.
Yes, it was.
And then remember what happened, because I don't want people to forget this. What did the ACC do in response to that? The ACC said, okay, tough guy, here you go. Why don't you come to Tobacco Road and look at the grants of rights yourself? Because there's no way you're going to get 10 schools in this conference to go ahead and agree to blow up this grant of rights when it's paying Louisville and Pitt and all these other members really good money for the level that they're at as an institution athletically. So so the ACC essentially said, no, here's the bird. Go ahead and do what you're going to do. So then what did Florida State try to do? Florida State immediately pivoted to collusion with ESPN and tried to go that route. And then that didn't work. And then they got pigeonholed into suing and saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and sue and make this happen. And we're going to force your hand. And this is what, so you did get some of what you wanted for sure. It's a win that the exit fee is so much lower. You keep your media rights.
It puts you for a year, I think, or so. It'll put you on par with SEC income.
Yeah, you're going to make more money. That's great.
That's probably the biggest thing.
And whether it's only a year you're on par with the SEC or whatever, like you're still making more money, which is great. But let's not characterize this as like a sweeping win, because you didn't leave the conference. You're not in the SEC. Like you didn't blow up the conference. Like that's not what happened. And I think that's what we like to forget.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. There's no, as Jimmy was saying, there's just no doubt. In 5 years, it'll be an unequivocal win.
Yeah.
But did you really, other than the money that you're going to make per year if you win and you have TV ratings and
right, yeah.
In 5 years, if there's a new entity, a super league in 5 years. Did you do anything other than make yourself more money? Which ultimately at the end of the day is probably what you want. You didn't.